Hola amigos y bienvenidos. Welcome back to Real Fast Spanish. The other day, a student asked, Señor, ¿puede hacer un video sobre whatever, whoever, wherever, whichever, or however? And I thought, it's a great question. These can be confusing words even for advanced learners. So today we're going to break them down one by one with clear examples, and I'm going to give you a few tricks to help you remember them. So let's go. Vamos. Now, first up, we can translate whatever into Spanish as lo que sea, cualquier cosa, or simply cualquiera. Now, whenever whatever means anything, we can usually go for lo que. For example, he says whatever he thinks. Now, again, this could be anything. Él dice lo que piensa. He eats whatever he wants. Él come lo que quiere. Like, qué suerte este chico. Come lo que quiere. He eats whatever he wants. What a lucky guy. Now, a useful trick here is that whatever is interchangeable with what. And when this happens in English, like for example, he says what he thinks, he says whatever he thinks. He eats what he wants, he eats whatever he wants. When this happens, we're pretty much always going to get lo que in Spanish. Now, we can use lo que in other situations, and I've done a whole video on lo que. I'll leave a description below. Now, in contrast, we can also say in Spanish, he says whatever he thinks. Él dice cualquier cosa que piensa. Now, when we compare these two sentences, the lo que option is probably more positive. Like if someone says whatever they think, this could be a good thing because we know where we stand with this person because they always speak their mind. But dice cualquier cosa kind of means that he blurts out like any random thing that comes to his mind, maybe without thinking it through. So cualquier cosa kind of implies that it's a bad thing. All right, next, when whatever appears as an adjective in English, we can translate this as cualquier or cualquiera. For example, we accept whatever card, maybe whatever card that you have or any card that you have. This would be aceptamos cualquier tarjeta. Another example, it's just an ordinary day. It's kind of like a whatever kind of day. Es un día cualquiera. Now, as you can see, we drop the A when cualquiera goes before the noun, and we keep the A when it goes after. Now, it doesn't matter whether the noun is masculine or feminine, this will always be the case. Now, as a quick aside, there is a well-known podcast in Spain that is put out by the state-owned national radio and television network called No es un día cualquiera, which we could translate this as it's not just any other day. And it's a cultural sort of news and entertainment type show. If you're interested, you can check it out. Now, the trick here, before we move on, is that whatever is interchangeable with any. So just think it's like any sort of day. It's like a whatever sort of day. Es un día cualquiera. Next, we have the phrase lo que sea, which is also a pretty flexible phrase in Spanish and often goes at the end of a sentence, like when you're listing options. For example, we can go out, we can stay in, watch a movie, or whatever. Podemos salir o quedarnos en casa, ver una película, o lo que sea. So if you want to leave your options open for suggestions, just throw in a lo que sea at the end of your sentence. Now, in the middle of a sentence, lo que sea can also mean whatever it takes. For example, I'm going to do whatever it takes to see her again. Voy a hacer lo que sea para volver a verla. Now, here we have this phrase, volver a ver, which literally means to return to see. The best translation to English would be to see her again. Now, we can also use lo que sea to express indifference. Like if someone asks you the question, do you want water or soft drink? You can respond, whatever. ¿Quieres agua o refresco? Lo que sea. Lo que sea. Now, the next word we should look at translating after whatever is whichever, because we can also translate this as cualquiera. But in addition, instead of lo que, we're going to now translate this as el que, la que, los que, or las que, depending on what we're referring to. Now, remember we said that whatever can mean anything? Well, whichever can mean any of them. For example, there are many books in the library. You can take whichever one you like or any of them for a week. Hay muchos libros en la biblioteca. Puedes llevarte cualquiera durante una semana. So for whichever, we are almost always referring to something from a previous sentence. So imagine you are shopping for shirts. Las camisas. You can then say, I'm going to buy whichever ones are on sale. Voy a comprar las que estén en oferta. So here we have las que, referring to the shirts as the translation of whichever. Now, also note that we need the subjunctive here, estén, because we don't know which ones or which shirts are on sale yet. Now, for all of the words we're looking at in this video, whatever, whoever, whenever, whichever, if the thing that comes after these words is unknown, we need the subjunctive. Now, often I avoid talking about the subjunctive on this channel because it's a complex topic and I know you can be conversational without it, because I once spoke to a Spanish friend for over 3 hours over dinner to test this, and it works because you can express almost any idea in a way that doesn't need it or doesn't need the subjunctive. So taking that last example, I'm going to buy whichever ones are on sale, voy a comprar las que estén en oferta, but we could say instead, I'm going to buy the shirts on sale. Voy a comprar las camisas en oferta. No subjunctive here. We could also say, if there are any shirts on sale, I'm going to buy them. Si hay algunas camisas en oferta, las voy a comprar. Again, we can express the idea in a slightly different way without the subjunctive. Now, I'm not completely against the subjunctive 100% of the time. We do teach the subjunctive in our Spanish school. It's a tool that advanced students can use for precision. And for today's lesson, we are going to need it because we have to use these words, whoever, whenever, whatever, etc. And after these words, we're often going to find the subjunctive. Now let's look at another example of whichever before we move on. So we have, there are lots of tourist places in the city. I'm going to visit whichever ones interest me. Hay muchos lugares turísticos en la ciudad. Voy a visitar los que me interesen. Now again, we have los que to represent whichever ones, and we have me interesen, which is the subjunctive form because the person hasn't decided which ones interest them yet. Next, let's look at translating whoever. And the most common way to do this would be with the word quién. Now, when I was coming up with examples for this video, the first one that came to mind was the Spanish expression, which I talked about in my video on expressions, would be quien madruga, Dios le ayuda. So the English equivalent would be the early bird gets the worm, and the literal translation would be whoever gets up early, God helps, or God helps them. Now, another simple Spanish expression might be whoever seeks, finds. Quien busca, encuentra. Now, note in Spanish expressions, we often don't need the subjunctive because general truths don't use the subjunctive. Now, a more everyday sort of conversational sentence might be something like, you can invite whoever you want to the party. Puedes invitar a quien quieras a la fiesta. Now, this is quite a complex sentence grammatically because we have the personal a quien, and the subjunctive quieras because the people who are going to be invited to the party are not known yet. Next, we have wherever, which translates as donde. Now, another well-known Spanish expression that comes to mind here for me would be a donde fueres, haz lo que vieres. Now, the English equivalent would be when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And the literal translation here would be wherever you go, do what you see. Now, note that this expression breaks the rule that I just mentioned earlier, as we don't often use the subjunctive in expressions. In this case, we can consider it an exception. Now, another example, I go wherever I'm needed. Voy donde me necesitan. Now, here we don't need the subjunctive because the person is talking about a habitual action. The person may be referring to what they've done in their career in the past, for example, and so this sentence focuses less on, say, a potential location that he may need to go to soon. But to see this in contrast, we could also say, I'm going to wherever they may need me. Voy a donde me necesiten. Now, this is not about a habitual action, but something that is happening very soon. And so the person doesn't know where they're going to be going. And so they'll express it this way using the subjunctive. Another example, take me wherever you go. Llévame contigo donde vayas. And note again, here we have another complex sentence grammatically. We have the command form, llévame, take me, and the subjunctive, you go, vayas, because we don't know where the person is planning to go yet. Now, the last word the student asked me about is however. And this word could refer to two different situations in Spanish. It could be however, as in but, like but I want to do something. For example, I want to go to the mountains this weekend. However, I have to work. This would be quiero ir a la montaña el fin de semana. Sin embargo, tengo que trabajar. So we could translate however as sin embargo or even pero. But of course, keeping in mind the theme of this video, however can also mean in whatever way or in whatever manner. Now, we can often translate this using the word como. For example, you can arrange the furniture however you like. Puedes colocar los muebles como quieras. Here we need the subjunctive because we don't know how the person is going to arrange the furniture. Another example, dress however you feel comfortable. Vístete como te sientas cómodo. Again, we have the command form, vístete, and the subjunctive, te sientas. So that covers whatever, whichever, whenever, whoever, and however. If there are any other topics you would like me to cover or you have questions from today, please let me know below and check out this video here on lo que for more examples of how to use this important Spanish phrase.